Need tools? We've got you covered. Go to ChromebookParts.com or click on the link below to pick up this sleek, portable toolkit. Flip the unit over and unscrew 8 captive screws from the bottom cover. Gently insert the opener pick between the bottom cover and the palmrest and slide along the edges to pop the bottom cover free. Peel back the tape and unplug the battery from the motherboard. Remove 4 3mm screws from the battery. Peel back the tape and unplug the LCD cable from the motherboard. Peel back the tape and unplug the DC jack from the motherboard. Flip open the locking clip and unplug the backlight cable from the motherboard. Flip open the locking clip and unplug the palmrest cable from the motherboard. Flip open the locking clip and unplug the trackpad cable from the motherboard. Flip open the locking clip and unplug the first daughterboard cable from the motherboard. Unplug the speakers from the motherboard. Peel back the tape, flip open the locking clip, and unplug the second daughterboard cable from the motherboard. Unplug the fan from the motherboard. Remove 1 3mm screw from the SSD. Unplug the SSD from the motherboard. Remove 1 3mm screw from the Wi-Fi card. And unplug the Wi-Fi card from the motherboard. Remove the following screws from the motherboard. Peel back the tape to get the Wi-Fi cables free from the fan. Lift up the hinge and gently lift up and pull back on the motherboard, taking care not to bend or damage the ports. Remove two 3mm screws from the SSD bracket. Remove the bracket. And gently use the spudger to pry the CMOS battery free from the adhesive. Unplug the CMOS battery from the daughterboard. Remove two 3mm screws from the fan. Remove the following screws from the daughterboard. Lift up the hinge. Remove the bracket and remove the one 4mm screw underneath. Peel the daughterboard cable from the Palmrest, and gently lift up and pull back on the daughterboard, taking care not to bend or damage the ports. Remove the power button. Remove four 2mm screws from the trackpad. Flip open the locking clip and unplug the trackpad cable from the trackpad. Lift the Palmrest partway up and gently push up and slide the trackpad free. Gently lift the speakers off their posts to remove them, and unwind their cable from its grooves. Remove one 3mm screw from the DC jack. Lift the Palmrest partway up and slide it free to remove. Replace the Palmrest. Replace the DC jack. And replace the one 3mm screw into the DC jack. Replace the speakers back into their posts. And wind the cable back into its grooves. Here's a picture of what it should ultimately look like. Slide the trackpad back into place. And replace the 4 2mm screws. Replace the power button. And replace the Daughterboard back into its port slots. Replace the one 4mm screw into the Daughterboard. Replace the bracket. Lower the hinge. And replace the following screws into the Daughterboard. Plug the trackpad cable back into the trackpad. Replace the fan back into its posts. And tape the Wi-Fi cables back to the fan. Replace the 2 3mm screws back into the fan. Plug the CMOS battery back into the Daughterboard and replace the CMOS battery. Replace the SSD bracket and replace the 2 3mm screws. Replace the motherboard back into its port slots, and be sure to get all the cables out from underneath. Lower the hinge. Replace the bracket. and replace the following screws back into the motherboard. Plug the LCD cable back into the motherboard. Plug the DC jack back into the motherboard. Plug the backlight back into the motherboard. Plug the Palmrest back into the motherboard. Plug the trackpad back into the motherboard. Plug the first Daughterboard cable back into the motherboard. Plug the speakers back into the motherboard. Plug the fan back into the motherboard. And plug the second Daughterboard cable back into the motherboard. Plug the Wi-Fi card back into the motherboard. Replace the bracket and replace the one 3mm screw. Plug the SSD back into the motherboard and replace the one 3mm screw. Slide the battery back into place. And replace the four 3mm screws. Plug the battery back into the motherboard. Replace the bottom cover and push down to snap it back into place. Tighten the 8 captive screws in the bottom cover.